Good evening. I will now call to order the November 17th, 2025 school board meeting. Please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Review and approval of tonight's agenda. Are there any comments or questions about tonight's agenda? No? Okay.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. Tonight's consent agenda. Are there any comments or questions that you all have about tonight's consent agenda? I wanted to make one quick comment just to say a big thank you to Terry Wallace, who generously donated $2,000 to the Food Service Benevolent Fund, specifically $500 to each school to help students pay for their meals. And I've heard there's something related to this with the Education Foundation now. Is that right?
And Renee can share more, but they have a fund to help with, students and stuff.
Okay. And that's new, right?
It is.
Okay.
There's a group in the community that reached out to us through the foundation, and they've started up a fund and a campaign through the foundation.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda, please. Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. All right. Presentation by principals. So the principals from each school will present on student learning outcomes from 2024-2025 school year. So do you all want to just come up one at a time?
Yeah, we could start with voice. It's the first attachment.
Lucky Matt. Yeah. Do you want the mouse to do it yourself, or?
All right. I'm Max Merrick. I'm the principal of Boyce, and I'll just go through and kind of share our data for this last school year. We had a really successful school year at Boyce, so I'll get into it. I just started off by sharing our demographics. Last year we had 218 students, K through 5 at our school. You can kind of see some of the breakdown of all the different subgroups that we have at our school. Been fairly consistent with these numbers for the last 3 years, so I just included those last few years that we've had. Then our third grade SOL scores, you can see on the left there is the subgroups and total number of students. We had 49 third graders last year, 7 of them students with disabilities, 2 EL students, and 2 students in the student support program. And there's our scores for this year. This is the first kind of cohort coming out of COVID that have been in school full-time starting in kindergarten. So it's great to see the progress they've made. Some of our higher scores were with this group in third grade last year. And you can see our pass advanced scores, pass proficient, percentage of students that failed, and then our final pass rate, 76% of students in reading passed and 75% in math. Our fourth grade SOL pass rates, same thing. You can kind of see the demographics on this side, but I included in this, every year I like to track how they do across years and have cohort data, so kind of comparing what they did as third graders to what they did as fourth graders. And you can see in reading 61% passed in third grade. Last year 70% of our students passed. Math, they were 75 and then went to a 72 in math as 72% passing. Virginia Studies was a 58% pass rate. That's an area that we're really focusing on this year is our Virginia Studies and continuing to improve in that area. Yeah.
What is SWD and SSD?
So SWD is a student with disability, EL is English language learner, and this is a student supports team. So this would be a student that is not identified for special education, but is in the process and having interventions in place. Fifth grade, we had a really successful year in fifth grade as well. You can see this was our larger class last year, but also a class with high percentage of EL and students with disabilities, and we were able to have increase in all areas from fourth to fifth grade. Had a 77% pass rate in reading, 73% pass rate in math, and a 79% pass rate in science, which we're pretty proud of. We had more kids pass advanced science than we did fail. So that was great to see. And then just I wanted to include kind of our historical data over the last 3 years. We've shown a lot of growth at Boyce. Our teachers, our students, everyone's working really hard. And you can just kind of see these are overall pass rates over the last 3 years, going back to 2022 to last year. We went from a 57 to a 67 to a 75% pass rate, 63, 68, 73 in math. Science has grown quite a bit as well, 44% pass rate, 59% pass rate to a 79% pass rate. Virginia Studies went from 49, 75, then back down to a 58. This year is a little bit of an anomaly because we departmentalized that year, and they had as much time teaching Virginia Studies as they did math and reading that year. So we did 90 minutes of Virginia Studies, and they had a higher rate. We went back to being inclusive classrooms where the one teacher teaches all subjects, and our rate went down a little bit. And then, yeah, go ahead.
So what are you guys doing this year? Did you switch? Are you departmentalized this year? Or?
We didn't departmentalize this year. The last few years we've had last year we had a really big focus on reading because we got the new reading curriculum. So I think that kind of took away from our Virginia Studies. And we're just really looking at trying to figure out ways to make it a little more engaging for our students in Virginia Studies. So we're continuing to work with the teachers to do that. Absenteeism, something I'm really proud of. These rates, you can see it's been a pretty steady decline over the last few years. This 9.6% pass rate is, or not pass rate, but chronic absenteeism rate is lower than pre-pandemic levels, going back like 10 years. So it's good. We had a really good rate, a lot of participation in our school for chronic absenteeism. Our projected accreditation rating is to be an on-track school. Those haven't been published by the state yet, but I'm fairly confident we'll be a pretty high-scoring on-track school in the upper 80s when our score does come out. And then I just wanted to share a little bit what have we done. We've shown a lot of growth over the last 3 years, going from 50% pass rates to 70s in the 70s. And here's what we've done. We really focused on differentiation with small group assessment. The first year, 4 years ago, we introduced Haggerty, which is a phonemic awareness program. We focus on what we call the Cardinal Way, which is our PBIS and behavioral expectations of being respectful, responsible, and safe. We do a lot of activities and different things for our PBIS program. The next year, so 3 years ago, we introduced UFly and more of a structured phonics curriculum, K through 2. We got started using decodable text in our small group instead of leveled readers. That year, 3 years ago, we really started goal setting. Across our school, every single student sets a goal for kindergarten through fifth. Teachers have goal setting meetings 3 to 5 times a year with every single student, and we progress monitor every academic goal in math and reading. Then 2 years ago, we focused on explicit instruction, and we did a PD with TTAC and a lot of high leverage practices. That was a year-long PD that was designed by TTAC. Active participation and getting students to participate on a daily basis became a big focus 2 years ago. And that's kind of how we talk about reaching our special education students, our EL students, is making sure that every single day, every lesson, every day, every kid talks, every kid participates, every kid does something in the classroom. So we talk about that a lot. That's when we started introducing our attendance incentives. We do things like raffling off bikes, scooters. We have ice cream parties. We track our attendance as class competitions throughout the school year. And then last year was a big focus on reading with benchmark advanced curriculum implementation and the new VALS testing and reading plans. Areas of continued focus is our EL students, our special education students, our economically disadvantaged students. So those are some of the subgroups that we're continuing to focus on in our instruction and through our goal setting. Some structural changes for this school year. We changed our master schedule to continue to have our 5th grade specials and band toward the end of the day. So we have a lot of our core instruction happening in the beginning of the day. We co-teach math and reading in 5th grade. We created our master schedule to really have opportunities for co-teaching in 1st through 3rd grades during reading with our EL, reading specialists, reading interventionists, and SPED teachers. This year we are implementing the pacing guides and quarterly benchmarks from the CIP in grades 2nd through 5, and then walkthroughs using literacy tool and explicit instruction tool. This year, our professional development and some of the different initiatives, it's just continuing benchmark, advance, focusing on small group instruction, partnering with the Virginia Literacy Partnership for that with Ms. Spitzer. Continued focus on high leverage practices with PD during our team meetings, but also with TTAC. They did a training for all elementary students on our last work day, looking at explicit instruction, active participation, unit and lesson planning, and then we do some peer observations in our school as well. We continue to refine student ownership and autonomy through goal setting to incorporate the benchmark data this year in 2nd through 5th grade, so they're tracking how well they score on benchmarks, every student individually as well. Increasing rigor and active participation for all students, but focus on EL and SPED students to make sure they are participating in every lesson every day. We're continuing our attendance protocols and incentive program. We do a student of the month, or the Soaring Cardinal program at our school, where we invite families in every month for a ceremony for our students that are the student of the month. And then this year, something new we implemented was school-wide Boyce Buddies and mentorship program. So we have every student is paired up with a student. 3 through 5 is paired up with a student K through 2. Once a month we get together and we do an activity. The first month we read books. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, we focused on Veterans Day. They learned about Veterans Day and wrote cards to veterans with their buddies. And as we come into the holiday season, they'll be doing some type of ornament or holiday craft with their buddies, and then we'll do our sing-along and everything together as well. So just trying to make a cross-school community with staff and students to kind of build in some mentorship opportunities for every student in our school as well. Any questions for me?
You say you're on track this year to continue to improve that.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, and even though they're out of order, I think it'd be good to continue with the elementaries, so Ms. Tinsman would come up.
You're welcome. Do you need me to click on this?
I can do it.
Oh, you got it there.
Mr. Wilson, Mr. Slayfield, and then turn the mics on.
All right.
Failing me tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Molly Tinsman. I'm the principal at DG Cooley Elementary. I want to go over some of our data from the past year and some things that we hope to continue and to move forward with in the coming year or as we work through this school year. So our demographics starting in 2021, you can see that our numbers have, across the top for total students, have consistently gone up. We did, at the earlier phase of this, did not have our pre-K program, but now that we have them back, in 24-25, we ended the school year with 517 students. And then the percentages there are broken down by subgroups. In our spring performance results, we were able to move forward with our pass advance rates, which was a very targeted direction for us to go. We do have students who really do deserve that beyond the norm level of instruction, and so we really move forward with that. In grade 3, we scored at a 72.4% overall pass rate in reading, and in math it was at 79.5. That was a really it was a great amount of growth for us. In grade 4, our reading pass rate was at 71%, math was at 66%, and overall in Virginia studies, we were at 67%, which is, these numbers do need to continue to go up, but we are seeing that kids are performing at a higher level now, and we need to pull everybody up along the way. So we're working on that this year. In grade 5, our reading overall was at a 69%. Math was at a 69, and so was science, and that's not a typo. All of those came out about the same. So we are working towards moving towards that more advanced level for students, but also looking at that intervention, especially for the subgroups that we're focusing on. iReady growth, I included this because some of the growth that students showed overall by grade level was pretty amazing. So we're closing gaps. Grade level performance is one aspect of it, and we definitely want students to be there. But the annual growth that students have made in some of the grade levels has been just amazing. For example, the highest number we have here is 147% growth, average growth in reading for 5th grade. 147% growth is amazing, and we want to continue to look at that. 159% growth in math, according to iReady. So we continue to see some of those larger numbers come into play when we talk about the growth of students in terms of performance and closing those gaps. Our VALS data showed that we had high-risk students in grades K through 3, as indicated by the VALS data, and those students were given a reading plan and also provided intervention by a reading specialist for 20 to 30 minutes a day, every day of the week, or every day we were in school. And so those students, we can see where some of that performance really does need to be, considered. And our 2nd grade last year really struggled. They had a difficult time. But this year, we're looking at the numbers being improving. But we also need to work on some very basic and foundational pieces of reading that we will continue to focus on.
Ms. Timpson,
Yes.
So, do you have any idea as to it's not on, why you saw like an increase from fall 24 to spring 25? Was it that these students just weren't
Well, they're not
moving
necessarily.
as
Yeah,
fast
there were
as their
some. There were
peers?
some who moved in.
Okay.
Some students who were identified for a variety of reasons. And we did look at some of the kids who just were not grasping the way we were teaching the reading to the level that we wanted them to. And so they were really struggling with that. In the first year of that reading benchmark program, it was a very challenging time for them. A lot of the difficulties that we see with the kids that they have are in the phonics and the phonemic awareness. And if they don't get a high leverage, rigorous program in that area that's taught consistently and beyond what we've done in the past, it's very hard for them to advance. So that's one of the things that we've tried to focus on, obviously, through the program, through curriculum, but also to give those kids that extra boost. Does that make,
Yes,
does that
that
answer your
makes sense.
question? Okay, thank you. All right. So what are the contributing factors? What are the things that worked, and what are the things that we're working on to get better? Our successes always include the heterogeneous grouping. And for those who may not be familiar with that, we're talking about kids who are placed at a high, they work at a higher level or mid-level, or sometimes they need support. And so we want to spread those kids out across every classroom. So we make sure that we're not grouping them based on their levels. We do departmentalize in grades 3 to 5. We continue to see success with that. The interventions that we have put in place and also continue to work on are getting us the results also. This year we have purchased and are implementing a benchmark advance program called Steps to Advance. And it's specifically for our Tier 3 students and the students who are in special education who require an additional level of support for reading. So that is something we're getting off the ground this year and seems to be going well. Takes time for us to get there. We have now, as we did last year, a 2-hour literacy block, which includes 90 minutes of core instruction, 30 minutes of intervention for every child. A 1-hour math block that's uninterrupted. If you teach, you know that uninterrupted means a lot. So We also have provided a 1-hour block for science. We had had to increase that because of our scores. We wanted to make sure that that also was a part of their day, and that they could get that content in there on a consistent basis. And then I missed one. All grade 4 teachers now are providing Virginia Studies instruction. That, and keeping that in mind, it keeps us from shouldering with just maybe 2 people doing it versus 4, and it gives them a more opportunity to share the resources and the planning and pacing. So that seems to be going well this year. Our master schedule was increased again in terms of teacher planning, so that the teachers would have 75 minutes of planning time a day, and in previous years they've had 45. So we're continuing to do that, and they love it. It's going really, really well. And then our attendance incentive programs for the students continue. And they're not different by much from what Boyce does. Our scores for grade levels are above 90% every month. So they compete. Nothing like ice cream to motivate children. And so they compete every month, and the winner gets an ice cream party. So we do that. And then, of course, this year we graduated from a bike raffle to a scooter raffle. So we're going to see how that goes. The kids were really excited about that. So our areas of need, of course, are to work more on the Tier 1 and 2 math instruction, doing professional development to support students as they acquire a higher level of math understanding. We also have Tier 1 and 2 reading instruction, devoted time to pacing. Last year we were getting benchmark advance off the ground. It didn't move as quickly as we wanted it to, so this year we're beefing it up. We're going to keep on going. We're talking about reviewing assessment data more frequently, regular data review meetings to incorporate test results from benchmark advance and accuracy of grade reporting. We want to make sure that we're not fluffing up any grades. We have to be real. It's challenging sometimes when we want the kids to do well, and so we give them opportunity until they do, versus what we call mastery, as opposed to working through that curriculum until they master it. Different ways to look at it. Also, we're learning some ways to better analyze that VALS data that we receive, and this year we had grades 4 and 5 take the VALS. Based on the conditions that were provided by the state, it was if they failed the SOL, if they had a reading plan in 3rd grade, and then they also talked about the performance in the previous school year. So it was also, they gave autonomy to the teachers. So if they felt that the students did not do well previously in reading, they wanted to assess it. And prior to that, they didn't have anything to do that besides the iReady. So it's good to have a second data point for that purpose. Our structural changes, we are using the CIP benchmarks and pacing guides to support instruction and increase the student performance. We really want to see that students are getting that level of rigor and the exposure to the curriculum and the content in a way that supports the learning at that grade level, in addition to the other things that we're doing. The other piece to that is we're able to use those benchmark scores, not for grades, they're strictly to inform instruction. So when we see the benchmark results as teachers and team members, we want to look at where things went well and where they didn't. So we just completed our first round, and we're working through that now, and we're learning. But we're also able to look back on some of the pacing that the CIP tells us to use in terms of completion of the curriculum throughout the school year, and being able to help teachers really work at a better pace, or a quicker pace in some cases for some of the areas outside of reading. We have our PBIS Student of the Quarter. We have Junior Eagle Awards is what they're called. Continued attendance protocols, incentive protocols. We have intentional goal setting with students for accountability purposes, and we're using TTAC, again, thank goodness, they're some of my favorites, to talk about explicit instruction, increasing engagement in the classroom, and total participation techniques to get kids locked in and eager to learn. I have no idea why that's there. I apologize. Renee put it in there, didn't you? Yeah. Any questions for me?
I meant to ask Mr. Merrick as well, how is it going with preschool being split at Boyce and Cooley? I mean, you guys have both had preschool.
Yeah.
But
So Mr. Boyce has had the program before. So he's in his building. I have not. So.
right, okay,
Yeah.
right.
So
right,
the difference is that they are right there with us. And not to be too silly, but I have to tell you, when you see a fifth grader looking at a pre-K student, it's adorable. Because they're, and we do have the kids who want to go, they're like little dolls. So they love having them in the building for that reason. It's going extremely well. We have a great teacher there, Ms. Zimmerman, and 2 instructional assistants who work in that program, and the kids are great. I think the fifth graders could learn a little bit from them about their. Anything from you, Mr. Merrick?
It's all good.
It's all good. Yay.
Thank you.
Of course.
And what you see 8th graders see in pre-K, because I've had that before, 3-year-olds and 8th graders.
Oh.
All right, we'll go on to the middle school.
Good evening. Will that stay or will that not stay? Mr. Sykes, you mind taking one? Sure. Pass one to Mr. Wilson, Mr. Herbert. There were some live links in my presentation that I'm going to revert just to some traditional handouts.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I got mine in my bag, you want to borrow it? We will start, I think, first and foremost, what we're most proud of is that Johnson Williams, under current projection, is that we will not be an off-track school, that we will be an on-track school this year. And while I may be the person at the helm, I have to attribute everything that we're doing to our students and our teachers. We have seen a marked increase in our student engagement, their ownership and learning, as well as the time and commitment which our teachers are putting into the work. We have adopted the comprehensive instructional program. Our teachers started to work in this not only about this time last year when we were first deemed a school that was off track when we developed our comprehensive school improvement program, but they really engaged with it, and most of our staff averaged between 20 to 40 hours of planning over the summer. We entered this school year with a comprehensive quarter plan and semester plan in the areas in which we are assessed, and that would be all grades reading, all grades math, and Science 8. However, to note that the Science 8 SOL is a comprehensive SOL that involves all 3 years. So students are tested at the end of their 8th grade year on all the science curriculum they are taught in grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8. Just our numbers, that is our current projection there in terms of how we are anticipated to rank. I will supplant that with a small caveat that when you saw Ms. Tinsman and Mr. Merrick talking about their student subgroups, the students with disabilities, the economically disadvantaged, and our English language learners, that if by chance one of our subgroups falls in the bottom 5% of the states, they do deduct us 1 level in our accountability. So we may be on track with regards to the basic math. That caveat of one of our groups falling in the bottom 5% is still yet to be seen, as we're all waiting on the state to finalize their data. I'm going to break a little bit from the slideshow because what you have in your hands is a summary of the next 6 to 8 slides. But in review, as you can see, and to orient the audience with regards to the presentation, you'll see the pass rates for 2024 and 2025. I think most importantly is where we finished up this past school year with our spring testing in 2025 and the differences that we made. The reds are decreases in our student performance, but the greens are adequate improvements in our student performance. Our main area that we are targeting this year is 6th grade in both reading and math. We are finding that the transition from elementary school to middle school is tough on our 6th graders. They go from 1 to 2 teachers a day to 7 teachers a day. Changing periods every 50 minutes. The rigor is increased, and as well as the manner in which we are implementing our instructional strategies and expecting more out of kids. And you'll see the improvements as they are sort of paralleled throughout the 3 grades as we get into the data. On your handouts, you have
three things. The first is the overview comparing 2024 to 2025. And as you will see in the far four right columns, our pass rates, our pass percentile rank, our pass advance rates, and the advanced percentile rank. When you start to see gains of anywhere over 5%, and we are upwards of 13% in 4 different areas, that is our improvement from the previous year with regards to the total students tested, the number of students who passed that test, and the number of students who passed advanced on that test. It is very pleasing to see the work of our teachers come to fruit when you see a pass advance rate in the 80th percentile. That means those percentile rankings where you see PR on your sheet, that is our school, Johnson Williams, being compared to the other, I believe it's 86, correct, Dr. Bowling, in the curriculum in the CIP program, roughly?
I think it's 76, but I may be
76?
wrong.
Well,
It's
about
the majority of the districts, though.
So comparing our school to the majority of districts in the state, we are better than 80% of the schools. Just one example, grade 7 reading, we are passing at a pass rate of 76.69 out of the 133 tests. That puts us at roughly the 59th percentile, better than 59% of the other middle schools in the comprehensive instructional program, a pass advance rate of almost 13%, and then a pass advance rate being better than 80% of the schools in the comprehensive instructional program. These are significant gains, we feel, much attributed to our work that we are doing on a daily basis. Going into your second handout, that is me giving you an overview of the past 3 years so you can see our continued growth from 23 to 24 to 25. If you just look at basic pass rates in all of the testing areas, from reading 6, reading 7, reading 8, math 7, math 6, math 7, math 8, algebra 1, science 8, and civics 8, we are continuing to have a good projection and moving in the right direction. The main thing I look for in terms of data is trajectory. And I think if you look at our trajectory from where we were in 2023, last year being a school off track and this year's being a school that's projected to be on track, it's nice to see our work coming to fruit. The last thing you have there, and just to sort of get down, those are some of the live links which I've sort of modified with handouts. I think the last page speaks volumes with regards to, one, our buy-in to the comprehensive instructional program. All of our teachers in all of the testing areas are operating off of a defined scope and sequence done through the work by the CIP over the summer. As well, we are following up with an assessment at the end of each quarter. We had benchmarks in reading 6, reading 7, reading 8, math 6, math 7, math 8, and algebra 1 at the end of our first quarter, which was approximately 2 weeks ago. The shading is a little bit off on yours. Those are all green with the exception of the one red. You can see based on where we are this year, our pass rates are being projected in the mid 70%, with math 8 being an outlier at 78%. And then you look at our advanced pass rates in terms of where we finish up in 2025, we're averaging in the upper 60s, as high as 85% for advanced pass rates. Those can be projections and will be projections for how our students will finish the year. We will continue to do our benchmarks for quarter 2, quarter 3, with the kids finally testing in May. And we have to attribute most of this to our daily work. One of our proudest things is our advisory program. All students have an advisory in the middle of the day. This is a 25-minute period, is where they're doing their goal setting, where they're doing their daily check-ins, where they're able to check out of their classroom and get assistance from their core teachers in English, history, science, or math. As well, we have also continued our implementation of our evidence-based interventions. Last year being a school that was off track, we were overwatched by the state and the federal level. We locked into 2 evidence-based interventions, one in reading and one in math. The math is a questioning technique that teachers are using on a daily basis to work with students and their ability to problem solve. And the English evidence-based intervention begins with a vocabulary focus, then branches out to students being able to write a gist statement. And that easiest to remember that if you ask somebody what's the gist of that, you're going to give them a summary of what you have just sort of observed or read about. So working on the summarizing ability, which inherently goes back to the student's ability to comprehend the text and then summarize that into a manner and put it into their own words. We did branch off a bit, and I think the EBI that is the most effective, as you will see in our reading scores in our first quarter benchmarking, as well as we finished up the last year. The vocabulary focus is carried out across all disciplines. It is being implemented in English, science, history, and math. We feel our students' knowledge of word and world knowledge is important. If they can tackle unknown words in English, they can do so in science and math and history as well. We also have a consistent walkthrough schedule. We have aligned with district admin, and we have many of our district leadership in the building every other week. We have a rotation between myself and Mrs. Rivera, as well as the district admin, and every other week we are observing 2 departments in a walkthrough, and our teachers getting feedback on our instructional practice, specifically with regards to evidence-based intervention and its implementation. The big thing is the mindset across Johnson-Williams is changed from being a school focused on social aspects of life to one that is focused on learning. And what we have in place this year, we aligned with TTAC, and that is the Training and Technical Assistance Center out of George Mason, which is directly funded by BDOE. We have 3 wonderful reps who have been working with us since late April, early May. We have a year-long professional development that all of our math teachers and all of our special ed teachers are engaged in. It is a coaching and mentoring model where we are delivering professional development on explicit instruction as well as total participation techniques. The total participation techniques are a lot of what Mr. Merrick spoke about, where you're trying to get every student to speak each day to verbalize their learning and articulate what that is that they don't know. That continues throughout this school year. Right now, our teachers are booking with our TTAC representatives for their mentoring and feedback model. They came in and did a coaching observation, and everything sort of is coming together here as we get into the third quarter, and that continues through the end of the year. That is a year-long professional development. Let's see, the continuation of EBIs, I believe I touched a little bit on that already and gave you a nice little on that. The CIP is in full implementation. That'll be benchmarks for all core subjects for all 3 quarters. And that allows us to have our data points, as you see on your last handout there, and how our kids are doing, and a good projection in terms of what we need to remediate, what they did not get, and what is solid for them walking into the test in May. As well, we have a targeted student approach. All of our departments meet every other week with school admin, where we go over our targeted students list. These are a focused approach on our subgroups, the students with disabilities, the economic disadvantage, and the EL students, and we are monitoring on them on a bi-weekly basis in terms of how they're doing. And this is the first year. Right now, we are in the finalizing phases of the reading plans. All students have been assessed. All reading plans are drafted. Parent meetings are ongoing, and with the intervention and accommodations that will be in place by the beginning of, roughly by the time we return from winter break. Any questions? Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
before you leave, I'd just like to
Certainly.
say, you said, you give all the credit to your teachers and the kids. Give some credit to yourself, too. Don't be so humble.
I think that
Okay.
it's a nice little combo. I have to attribute a lot of this to Mrs. Rivera. Mrs. Rivera is far better at data than I am. I do have a nice pillar that I can lean on. Her organization, her work with teachers, the follow-up with students, her engagement and communication with families. It goes back to the proverbial, it takes a village. It's not the work
Yes,
of
it
one,
does.
it's the work of all. But
Also takes a good leader and a good culture, okay?
we're working in unison.
Good.
Thank you.
Good evening. So the high school accountability is a little different than elementary and middle school. So we're going to go through some of the aspects of what makes that up. In the high school, the weight of the framework is mastery, which consists of the SOLs in reading, mathematics, and science. The readiness consists of chronic absenteeism, the graduation rate, along with a 3E readiness framework, and then the cohort for the federal graduation indicator. And we'll break that down as we go through. These are the results from Clarke County High School in the 23-24 year. Level 1 through all. English was a level 2. We'll go through and talk about some of those subgroups that consist of and the improvement where we saw that from last year. This year, the high school is also participating in the CIP. It's being implemented K through 12. Math was in the first quarter of administration. Second quarter, which will be our midterm, will be science and social studies, and then English will test actually after the writing SOL. So this was the data from 24-25. When you look at the pass rates, we did very well, very strong writing, science, reading, math, and history. We also included the percentile ranking. The other principals had talked about that. That's how we compare with others within the state. We also have advanced pass rates. The yellow means we're right there with everyone. Green means we're very above average. When you look at science, we actually had school districts that reached out to us to ask what was going on. The advanced pass rate, very high for the reading and the writing. Math is a little bit lower. History, we'll go on to the next one. We'll explain a little bit of that. Math, our strongest students in Algebra 1 are at the middle school. So when we test our freshmen, even though they're passing, they might not be having that high advanced pass rate. But right back up there with geometry at 85 and Algebra 2 at 90%. All students have to take an SOL, even if they've gained and passed math within the middle school. They're required to take that when they get to the high school. Our reading, our special ed students saw a significant increase. We're proud of the RTI, which is the response to intervention classes that we have at the high school in English 9 and 10. We also have fundamentals of reading, which are for Tier 3 special ed students. We have 3 of those classes that really hone in on very specific skills for individualized students. Our continued focus, we expanded RTI to English 11 this year, which is the SOL year. We continued the explicit instruction within RTI 9 and 10. Those are smaller classes. They're very methodical. Explicit instruction, vocabulary, and then the emphasis on student expectations. If you show up every day, if you do what your teachers ask, they're going to get you where you need to be successful at the end of the year. These are our breakdowns of our student subcategory when we talked about our special education students. Yes, when we look at the pass rate, it is lower than the benchmark for the state, but when we look at the percentile rankings in comparison to the other counties that are in the consortium, we've scored very high in that regards. The same with socioeconomic, and then our EL, and we'll talk a little bit more about those subcategories within our next slides. Math was the strongest core subject for all, the pass rate and the percentile rate. Writing the weakest. A lot of this has to do with the multiple choice portion. There is reading that's involved in that, and it can be cumbersome, especially for our students that struggle with reading and writing. Special ed students, as we said, did comparatively well, along with our economically disadvantaged in math and reading. And this year we hired a full-time EL instructor to assist with our growing population and language acquisition for our students who've just arrived to us. So we talked about the readiness categories. We talk about the different aspects. So enrollment, and this is where it gets quite cumbersome when we talk about this. We're assigned different points. For students who earn an associate's degree, which means the first 2 years of college, we receive 1.25 points for that student. Other students, we can receive 1 point in 3 credit-bearing college-ready courses. That could be AP, IB, dual enrolled. They would have to have an average of a B within that dual enrollment, or earning an early college scholar certificate. This year we have 20 seniors who are participating in that and 35 juniors. So we anticipate those numbers continuing to grow. And then as you see, you can gain 0.75 for 1 to 2, and then 0.5 if a student takes one of those classes. These are the credits that our students received last year in IB, AP, and dual enrolled. So there are 560 students who participated across the board. That means that we might have one student who took 4 IB classes. We have 156 for AP credit. We only have 3 AP classes, so that's smaller. And then our dual enrollment is sometimes combined with IB and AP, or it can be a standalone class as well. So an example would be IB English 12, which is dual enrolled. Or we might have forensic science, which is just a dual enrolled credit. It's not associated with IB or AP. So our new credit offerings that we were able to do this year, Introduction to Forensic Science, we have 40 plus students, extremely popular class. And our medical terminology, which complements our health occupations. While we've had this class in the past, our instructor was eligible for dual enrollment. So our students can receive dual enrollment in those classes as well. Employment, these are our CTE completers, and it goes through again the 1.25, the 0.7, and the 0.5. This has to do with our high demand credentials. So we're taking classes, but the students are also being assessed in a high demand industry credential, which has proven to be quite complicated. But we're working through what the state has recognized as those specific offerings. Enlistment, this is where we give the ASVAB. Those are the scores that students would have to receive in order to earn 1 point, 0.75 points, or 0.5 points. Last year, we actually tested both our junior and senior classes because our senior class was our cohort. You can see the breakdown there. Moving forward, we'll only test the junior class, and then any seniors that might transfer in will be eligible to take that as well too. It is not a mandatory, although it is strongly encouraged. The ASVAB, while sometimes it's considered a military assessment, it is a plethora of information for students in their careers and their aptitude. So we strongly encourage everyone to take that information. We're actually scheduled to administer that in February of this year. Graduation rate, this is under the federal graduation indicator. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip down to the next slide because this really talks about our outcomes. 75% of our graduates earn an advanced studies diploma compared to 51 in the state. This also helps in the accountability aspect for the high school level. 65% of our graduates go on to enroll into 2 or 4-year post-secondary institutions after graduation. That could be traditional college, trade school, and then our graduation rate consistently remains high at 99%. Also included in the accountability has our work-based learning. We have registered apprenticeships, internships, clinical experiences, and school-based enterprise entrepreneurships. So we do a lot within that. We have about 20 students who are in internships. We have co-ops. Our community partners, we keep continue to expand. We have 2 students at Audley. Nissan Automotive, we have 1 young man who's doing the mechanical, but they've also expanded that to include an internship for next year for sales reps and for their marketing positions. Some of these are from previous years, the Clarke County Historical Association, Knowles Farmer Market, Berryville Physical Therapy. We also have students, we have 4 students that are co-ops through Winchester Medical. And then we have about 20 students who are in our class for work-related purposes. Any questions?
I wanted to ask about history, because I think you
Yep.
said that, and so our history score, like, they were really high, right, for, was it World History 1?
No,
Is that-
so geography, so when students come in as freshmen, they have the option of taking World Geography or Honors World History 2.
Okay.
So Honors World History 2 is going to be very high
Mm-hmm,
because that's an honors level
right,
course.
right.
You know, we look at that cohort of young individuals, and they probably really focused a lot on the Algebra 1. So we continue to look at other aspects of gaining that geography.
Gotcha. Okay. Because there's been such a, I see what you mean. There is such a focus on making sure that they're finding success with Algebra 1.
Well, that, and as I said, you know, when you take that freshman cohort group, many of them are taking the world history, and then the academic students might be taking geography.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
And Ms. Kerhobert, before we move on beyond this, just a few quick summary pieces. And I'll speak later to the accountability framework score, which was supposed to be released, you know, a few months back, and we're still waiting on that piece, and we still have to go in and add those categories up daily because it's not published yet. But I do think it's important for you all to know where we're at today. And I do agree with the data pieces, but it's not formally released yet. But right now, Clarke County High School, as of today, was at a 102 700 is where they were at, so 102.07. That would be in the distinguished category. Johnson Williams was at an 83.07, which would be on track. Boyce Elementary was at an 87 7900, which would be on track, and Cooley was at 84.58, which would be on track. Anything 90 or above is distinguished, and anything between 80 and 89.9 repeating would be an on-track school. So that's the brand pieces there. I did want to share that, though, because that is not formally released yet. The reason being, as complicated as the accountability framework is, and I do think we have to share this after the data presentations, because it comes with a caveat, which is if a school is federally identified, their destination category is reduced by at least one level. And you know the levels are distinguished, on track, off track, and in need of intensive support and remediation. So if a school is distinguished and they're federally identified, their number stays the same, but they're released formally as on track. And the way that works is it's a very complex formula, and I could share that, but we won't go into that exactly. But basically, if for any subgroup that has 15 or more kids, if you're in the bottom 5% of pass rates and accountability scores for Title I schools in the state of Virginia, then you're reduced one level. If in all areas, science, math, and reading, you're also in the bottom 5%. And that's really making that as simplistic as it can be, because it's a very complex process. It makes our accountability framework look pretty simplistic, which is also pretty complex. But you all do need to realize that we look really good. Right now we have 3 on-track schools and 1 distinguished, which is something to be incredibly proud of and is far above most districts. But do realize that if any of our subgroups fall in that bottom 5%, then we will be reduced 1 category level when it is formally released. But we also need to be really impressed with where we are in our academic rankings. For the 23-24 school year, we were 57th out of 131 in the state, which was improvement over the previous year. But for 24-25, what we ended last year, we were the 43rd district in the state in terms of academic achievement. So we were 43rd out of 131. So we actually made 14 slots gain last year, which I think is phenomenal. Really proud of that. Now, of course, there's a lot of work to be done, because I don't want to be happy till we're 1, 2, or 3, or even at 1. But it's still something to be proud of, the progress we've made thus far. But I do want you all to understand we're still waiting from the state, and the numbers will remain the same, but the category title is subject to, it will stay the same unless we're in the bottom 5% for subgroups.
Any questions? Thank you all. Moving on to the Finance Committee report. So Mr. Nucci will provide a report from the Finance Committee meeting held on November 17th.
12.
last Wednesday. That's all right, last Wednesday.
Good afternoon, everyone. We can go ahead and I can give you the Finance Committee update that happened on November 12th. So we can start with attachment 2, which will be the summary of changes to the revenue budget. So for this sheet, we've been over it before, but basically how it goes is we tell you what the revised budget amount was to begin the fiscal year. This is the amount that we thought we were going to receive in revenue in the beginning of the fiscal year, which is $29.8 million. Then we go through and we talk about the changes to local funding, the changes to state funding, the changes to federal funding, and then we tell you where we expect to be at the end of the fiscal year, our fiscal year estimated revenue. So for local funding, we left this blank for now just because this is usually where we add dual enrollment or tuition for private services. And right now we're only 5 months into the fiscal year, so we're relatively new, so we haven't finalized those amounts just yet. So we left that blank for now, but we'll update that in the preceding months. The big thing we want to talk about today is the state funding. So right now we're projecting about $230,000 less in state funding than where we thought we'd be at the beginning of the fiscal year. And pretty much all that's due to a change in funding headcount, or our ADM. So our ADM is our average daily membership, and the higher your ADM, the more funding you receive from the state. So if you have an ADM of 15,000, you're going to receive more funding from the state than if you had an ADM of 2,000. And basically there's two indicators that we use. One's Weldon Cooper from UVA, and one's from the state, VDOE. And they give us an estimate of what our ADM would be for fiscal year 26. So they came back and gave us an ADM of 1910 and 1930. We estimated our ADM for the fiscal year 26 budget at 1850, so as much as 80 below. And our ADM is coming in at about 1825, so less than what we budgeted for, even at a conservative budget. So when we have a less amount than what we estimated for, that's going to be less funding, which is why we have the $230,000 less. Last week, I attended a VASPO conference, which is the Virginia Association of School Business Officials, and this was a big topic, maybe even the main topic that a lot of the counties talked about throughout the state. And the reason why this number is so hard to estimate is because there's no one-size-fits-all approach. For example, if you're at Madison County, Virginia, if you want to estimate your ADM for the next year, you're probably just going to, and your county only has 12,000 residents, you're probably just going to do a rollover method. So your 9th grade becomes your 10th grade amount, 10th becomes 11th, 11th becomes 12th, and 12th goes on, and then you estimate what your pre-K or kindergarten amount would be. But if you're like Arlington County, Virginia, you're probably going to have to do like a way deeper dive. You're going to have to do like an economic analysis. You're going to have to look at housing trends. You're going to have to look at new developments in your county and how many people in those new developments are going to your public school system. So, you know, if you're from the state and you're giving out an ADM number, there's no way to kind of have a one-size-fits-all approach. It's pretty much everyone's different, and they don't have really the people to be at every single county and have a pulse on kind of what's going on at every single county. So the best thing we can do here, and the rule of thumb, is just to have a conservative estimate, which is what we did. It came in lower, but that's something that we'll monitor for the next year. But that's the big contributor of why our state revenue is less than what we projected. Nothing for the state, no changes there yet. So in total, our estimated revenue is going to be about $200,000 less at $29.6 million, as opposed to at the top, $29.8. Any questions on that? That's kind of the main point here. Other than that, we can just go ahead and get into the details of the 4 funds. So the first thing we can talk about is on the bottom of page 10, which is the school operating fund. So in revenue, we received just the bottom of page 10.